I
So,
used. Mhm.
yeah, no, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say I used to be like a whole lot worse with my social anxiety. Like I used to be the quiet kid in the corner that no one ever talked to. I had to work on it for a long time. Now now it's a whole lot better. Like it's similar to what you said earlier. I dealing with like people I don't know, especially in groups, is a lot more difficult, especially if it's a back and forth interaction instead of me just talking to them. But by and large, I'm pretty unrecognizable from the guy I was like 10 years ago.
I mean, that's really good. Isn't that kind of what we should all strive for? I feel like the only way to really grow is to look back at yourself and realize that you are no longer that person.
Potentially, yeah. I find that it depends a lot on the person that you were, because some people like know who they are, and who they are as a good person at a young age. I definitely know a couple people who have barely changed since like their teenage years, and that's a good thing because they're great people. Sometimes it's just about being a good person, no matter what stage of your life it takes to get there.
Yeah. Okay, so real quick before I continue going,
Yeah,
this is Froglosophy. Welcome to Froglosophy. I am Frog.
thank you
Kind of
for
like
having me, Frog.
philosophy. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for being here. You are gonna go by Psy
Yep.
for this or Cyanic Acid. Um, so tell me something about yourself in a way that means a lot to you.
uh I have this like motto. I don't get to use it often because out of context it sounds really preachy, but it's something that I actually like try to live my life by. I
Mm-hmm.
genuinely believe you save the world one person at a time.
Huh.
Like, so my thought behind that, to just give you like the overarching idea, is we focus a lot on governments. We focus on like big organizations, nonprofits, and everything like that. And oftentimes, all these things seem to fall short, and the world is collapsing around you. The way I think of it, I have nothing involved in any of that. Like I go out, I vote. That's about as much involvement as I can. Sometimes I'll donate to a charity if I really feel like I can. But if I see like one person who really needs help and I can help them, and it's not going to destroy me to help them, then I'll do that in the hope that one day they'll return the favor and help someone else. And then they'll help someone else. And then slowly, over a long time, like it spreads that way.
Okay. That's that's a great way of looking at it. That kind of goes in line with some things that I've been thinking about over the past couple days, actually. Which is just that I've realized if you want to treat the symptom that technically is humanity, you would have to think of how to treat an individual, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the problem from looking at history, you can tell we've done a lot of medical things where we were just guessing, and it kind of indirectly fucked up a lot of population, mentally
Mhm.
and physically. Just the different things we were putting into our bodies and we weren't regulating it, and people weren't being told that it's not okay. People were being
Yeah.
told actually that it would cure everything. So that had to have had an effect on our population as a whole. So, in order to treat the population, the major symptom, you would have to break it down to a smaller step and hope that you just do it quick enough to hit enough people to cut it off from hitting the next generation.
Yeah. It's it's a bit of a dichotomy because you want to be fast about it, but at the same time there's no fast way to do it because you're talking about helping an
Yes.
entire population. But of course, you help the entire population one person at a time, whether it's through medical or healthcare services or just helping someone to get off their feet.
Right. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, like this is me just thinking as we're talking about it. What you said goes perfectly in line with that. Is one person at a time type of thing,
Mhm. Yeah,
and
it's I think it's kind of
it's
uh
great.
yeah, well, I think in a weird way it's kind of reflective of what's going on in a microcosm with the pandemic, because like how do you build immunity against the pandemic, right? It's one vaccination at a time.
I
You
mean,
can't.
yeah,
Mhm. But yeah, that's been something I've like tried to live my life by, in a sort of subtle way. I don't try to force it down people's throats. I don't try to preach it to them, but I've helped out a lot of people, and I don't claim to say like I've helped them out. Like I've restructured their lives for them. I've given them new hope. I'm not saying it's like that, but I've had a couple people who were homeless, and I gave them a couch to sit on rent free for a few months. I've known a couple friends who are going through some hard times, and I gave them a shoulder to lean on, and someone who is willing to hear their problems and maybe give them advice if they're interested in getting some back. And I find that just those simple things are really lacking in a lot of people these days. And it helps a lot. Like if you know someone who's going through a rough time, I'm sure you people hear this a lot, but like just offer to hear them out. You don't even have to fix their problems. Like just being a sounding board for their woes can be a big thing for them.
definitely. That's really important. Absolutely. Dang, I lost what I was gonna say. It's okay. Um, I mean, I'm definitely eternally grateful for all of the people who have helped me over the years, whether it be sleeping on their couch or tossing me a few bucks to get something to eat, or even just giving me some information on where I can go and what I can do to kind of help me get through whatever it is that I'm going through.
Yeah, it adds up, don't
And
it?
it definitely does. But let me ask you this, like what age were you when you decided to start doing that, when you actively started thinking about that?
17.
Did
And
anything significant like prompt that?
yeah, my brother jumped off a building. Uh, and for anyone listening, it may have sounded kind of weird that I like giggled as I said that, but it's it's not because I think it's funny. It's because I've come to peace with that having happened, and now it's just a part of my life. I'm not never gonna get that back, and never gonna get a do over. But to not go on a tangent for too long, what that did for me is obviously that would be a pretty major event for anyone in their lives, and my whole family, like everyone, dealt with it differently. For me, as soon as he took that nosedive off a building, I thought long and hard about what I could have done to prevent that. And I think a lot of people kind of think about that, but it's it was more than just what I could have done to prevent him from jumping off a building. I started to think about what I could do to prevent anyone from jumping off a building. And then from there, I started to think, well, some people, even if they're not quite willing to commit suicide all the way, are having just a rotten time of life. What can I do to make it better?
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. That caught me really off guard.
Oh, you're fine.
Um,
Like I said, it's just a part of my life now. It happened
yeah,
over 10 years ago. Uh, Actually, just a little under 10 years ago. But yeah, I've come
yeah.
to peace with it. It's just a part of me.
I I mean that's very good for you. You know, that sounds very healthy that you've gone through what you've gone through to be where you are now. I
Thank you.
think the really important thing with to focus on, you know, the fact that you started thinking about how to help people is one of the biggest problems with starting to help people and try to help people get to where like they're trying to get to is not being taken advantage of. And it's really important to note that in the beginning when you started talking about this, you said as long as it didn't break you, you know, like did you have to learn
Sort
to
of.
set those boundaries or did you already start off with those boundaries?
I did have to learn them, but I got lucky because sometimes when people learn that lesson, they it's because they got broken all the way. Like someone just took them for a ride, and that never happened to me. Fortunately, the people that I were helping out, sometimes they did take advantage of me. Sometimes even family members like took me for granted, but no one ever really broke me down. I was fortunate enough to learn small lessons as I went. Um, I guess a good example of this is I was this was shortly after my brother killed himself, and I was uh letting a friend, let's just for anonymity's sake call him Bob. I was letting a friend stay on my couch. He had been homeless since high school. Truthfully, he was more of a friend, but he became a friend as I got to know him. And he had been homeless since high school, and we decided to offer him a couch, rent free, and everything to stay at. Partially because where we were living at the time was a 2 minute walk from where he had just gotten his first job, and we were like, "Hey, you can crash here as long as you need to, save up money, get yourself on your feet. This is a way for you to start out." And he had some interesting personality quirks, but who doesn't? And he was there for months, which we were fine with because he had to like build up savings and everything. But one day he came home and he was like, "Hey, I got a court hearing. We Can one of you drive me to this?" And I was like, "What's your court hearing for?" It turns out that he had had a girlfriend and he was at her place, and they got into a bad argument, and he had like struck her, which is a huge no-no for me, at least personally. I was like, "No, I'm not driving to this court hearing. You fucked up. You got to get your shit together. I am not involved in this at all." But I felt like somewhat betrayed that I was like putting myself out there and trying to help him get on his feet, and he did something that I considered morally very reprehensible.
I mean, morals are important. It's what drives us.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I mean. Like, obviously, like this doesn't break me down individually, but I don't want to be in any way associated with those kinds of things. And slowly over time, I learned that like if I'm helping someone, I I like to say I help those who help themselves. Like I want people to take the assistance that I'm giving them and go somewhere with it. It's not it's not like a loan. I don't need to be paid back or anything. I don't expect anything in return, but I expect them to try at least to be the best version of themselves that they can be. Because I think that's just to attempt that is very difficult, but at the same time, it's all we can do.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's just kind of it. Uh, what about you? Have you ever been like, did anyone ever like take advantage of you and you were like, "Oh, this is a lesson I gotta learn from."
Um, I wouldn't say that I looked at them as lessons when they were happening. more of a couple years ago, I sat down and started dissecting myself and my life and where am I? What am I doing? Do I like what I'm doing? Do I like what I'm doing because I like it, or do I like what I'm doing because other people like it? You know, like, am I into the stuff that I actually enjoy? Because I don't feel happy, I don't feel fulfilled, I don't feel satisfied. Nothing feels great. I was in a bad depression since a teenager, and up until about 27, I just accepted that I was really sad and that it was never going to get better. But I kept trying to learn something, and I was just curious to see where I was going to go. Um, I got
How'd you
taken
get out of
advantage
it?
of a lot, and as far as getting out of it, I was in Alaska alone in my cabin. I worked up there, and it was
Mhm.
provided through my job, so I was just kind of, it was nice to be alone. And when you're alone in Alaska, it's completely different than being alone anywhere else I've
Yeah,
been.
you're alone for
'Cause it's
500 miles in every direction.
Yeah, it was I mean, it's not that much exaggerated, but it's very quiet. So, and you can just enjoy that peacefulness. Um I just had that thought one day of like, yeah, do I like what I like because I like it, or do I like what I like because other people liked it and I just wanted to have friends? Because I'm starting to find out that I do a lot of things just to have friends. And I'm not really happy with that anymore because like those friends ended up not being good friends.
Yeah.
And I'm not really enjoying the stuff that I used to like anymore. So I guess at that point, I just started trying to find myself, who I was, and started learning how to set boundaries. I read some books on self help, on self discipline, self control,
Nice.
kind of how to control your body and mind, and also nutrition and health books, and then psychology books and philosophy books. And I would just go to the library, sit in the library, read, and then go home. Or I would sit wherever I was at and search the internet for as many different things about it as I could. And I would never take each thing as this is exact scientific proof unless I thought that like that institution or website was legit. Like I try to fact check as much as I can, and I have since I was a teenager when I was like 11 and discovered the internet and just kept going. But I mean, when you used LimeWire back in the day, you had to find out what was a virus.
Oh,
You
yeah.
didn't know, but you were training yourself to be a fact checker on the
Yeah.
you
You're
know.
trying to download a song and you take a pause and you're like, wait, this is an executable file I'm about to download.
Yeah, yeah, you're trying to download that game illegally. Don't do that, guys.
Not
But
officially, at least.
yeah, it I started just trying to analyze myself and who I interacted with and what I did and where I was going.
I think
I don't
it's.
know where I'm going, but I know what I've done. And as long as what I've done makes me feel good about myself and does not hinder anyone else's feeling of good of themselves. I could have worded that different, but whatever.
No, I know exactly what you mean
Yeah.
because, like, so I think I'm gonna go off on a bit of a weird tangent here, but all the time, like growing up, especially here in the U.S., if you ever end up with like large followers outside the U.S., I don't know culturally how it is in other countries, but here in the U.S., like we're always told, be yourself. Don't measure yourself against anyone else's opinions of you. And there is truth to that, but as an absolute, it's definitely not correct. Because what if you yourself is just an asshole? Right? Like you don't want to be yourself then. You got to work on yourself and change it. Uh it's always important to do what you like and what you consider makes you happy, but it can't take away from other people. Like other people can't feel like they don't want to spend time with you. And at the same time, like the people that don't want to that may or may not want to spend time with you have to be worth that opinion. Like if someone else is just a jerk, then who cares whether they don't want to spend time with you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think just do whatever you want to do. Do whatever makes you happy in your entire life. You know, you don't have to do it in the open. You don't have to shove it down people's throats. Do whatever you want to do and just don't hinder or push it on anyone else. Let everyone else do whatever they want to do. But if everyone followed that rule of pretty much just don't set anyone else back, you'd be fine. You'd be
Yeah.
focused on yourself. You wouldn't be focused like you could have friends, you can hang out, you can have opinions, you can go back and forth, but you don't have to make them go further back than the journey that they already worked just as hard to get to.
I've got
And
like
if they didn't work that hard, who cares?
mhm, something
That's
I
just
think
their blessing.
yeah, yeah, something I think that pervades a lot in modern society. It's just like what you said is sometimes because people think that they had to deal with a hardship, or because someone else has to deal with a hardship, anyone who's not dealing with that hardship is inherently like they haven't deserved what they've gone through in life, which I think is complete nonsense. You know, just because just because there are thousands of people who are starving across the world doesn't mean that you need to be starving before you're allowed to appreciate your food. If you order a meal at a restaurant and you don't like it, you're allowed to not eat it or to return it as long as you're polite about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you I'm not sure I understand the correlation between
Well,
those.
the idea is that sometimes people think that because so to make it more personal, let's say student loans. I mean, I'm gonna get a smidge political, but I feel like it's not something that should be political. Sometimes people who have finished paying off their student loans think that because they had to work through their student loans, that everyone else now has to work through student loans. There should never be any
Ah,
student loan forgiveness, which I think is insane. It sucks that you had to like deal with student loans for years, often decades, and that you had to work and pay them off. But that doesn't mean that everyone else should have to suffer through them.
yes. I agree with that 100% when you put it that way.
Yeah, sorry, my analogy was a little out there, the first one.
That's that's okay. I mean, it's I've heard plenty of stories from my own experience and friends where our parents are like, you don't know what it was like before internet or before video. But I've also heard stories of their parents being like, you don't know what it was like before TV. You don't
Yeah.
know what it was like before that. And their parents, you don't know what it was like before radio. And their parents, you don't know what it was like before electricity.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, you're going to keep telling people they don't know what it was like,
Yeah.
but what purpose is that serving? I mean, you're just throwing it out there to be that serves absolutely no purpose in positivity or making anyone feel good about themselves or anything.
You can
And
see
then
it.
that whole like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yeah. You can see a picture nowadays, see them all the time, like everyone at a bus stop on their phones, and you're just like, what's going on with the world today? You look at a picture back in the 60s of everyone at a bus stop, every single person's reading their own newspaper. It's the same thing, just a different medium.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were people complaining about that as well.
Yeah.
You don't know what it was like before newspapers. I do actually. You know what it was like? None of us knew what the fuck was going on. all the internet has done is bring everyone closer together, give
Hmm.
us more knowledge than we can. I'll say I'll say for my own theory, probably handle right now, because it happens so fast
Oh yeah, absolutely.
that I think there's hope in the world, the way we're going. There's possible outcomes that could be positive. We could all come really close together. We could all become a unified species eventually. This could progress towards that because the internet brings everyone in the world closer together. You realize we all laugh at the same dumb shit just with different words.
Yeah.
We all fucking love memes. We all like music. We all like art. We all like there's so much that we have in common that it would be so much easier to figure that something out where it could work. I mean, on top of the whole just every smart person in the world who has like the best degrees for philosophy and law and economics and sociology and like po- uh, political science. I think I already said that. I don't know. I'm a little high.
Hmm.
But just if you got all those people together into a giant room, you're going to tell me that if you made all of their decisions based on moral logic and reason for us as a species, that we couldn't come up with some way to all live together and just be fine, we probably wouldn't even have to work anymore. Like, if you want to work, go to work. If you don't want to work, here you go. This is your starting bare minimum of what you could have if you don't want to work.
There's a
But if
decent
you
amount
if you
of
want to work, then you can go further in your life and get more things. But
yeah.
work should not feel like fucking, oh my God, this is it. This is my life. This is all I'm doing.
People. A lot of people's jobs are. It's just a grind to survive, which is. I'd like to think that as a species we're capable of moving past that. It's like you said, work should be a gateway to becoming more. You shouldn't survival should be provided for nowadays by your society, by everyone around you, and in a way, depending on how you're doing, you should help provide for others' survivals. And then work is how you move past that. How you do more than survive instead of just survive.
Oof.
You okay there?
Yeah, this has been a interesting conversation.
Sorry, I
So
go
I'm
off on a
going
lot of
to.
tangents.
That's okay. So do I. I'm gonna segue this into, or I guess I'll finish this out with what drives you as a person.
This is gonna sound really cheesy, but happiness. I've gone through like I could if we had like another hour, I could detail uh all like the steps in my life after I started to become independent on how I've grown as a person and my inner monologue on what I've thought about myself. But in short, I've gone through like stages of my life where things have changed and I've grown ever so slightly in each stage. And now I'm at this stage where I acknowledge that I'm just pursuing happiness itself. But for a lot of people, happiness is like this ethereal sort of non concrete tangent. And you ask them what happiness looks like to them, and they don't really know. And it's like, how can you chase something that you don't know what you're chasing? I know what it is for me. It's security. I want to. I don't want to be afraid of tomorrow. I don't want to be afraid of what the world may do to me. But I also don't want to be afraid of what I may do to myself or to others. I want to know that no matter what I do tomorrow, no matter what is done to me tomorrow, everything will be fine. My friends will be happy spending time with me. I'll be happy to spend time with my friends. I'll be happy to spend time with myself alone. If I have a medical issue, it'll be all right. If I have car troubles, it'll be all right. When I go to work tomorrow, it'll be all right. And that's what keeps me going because it sounds like a lot, but I kind of feel like I'm close. Uh, I need to make some more money, and if anyone that tells you money doesn't buy happiness, I'll be straight with you. Money helps. You need enough money to be secure of yourself, but like just me as a person as well. Like I feel like I'm close, and I'm gonna keep trying to get there.
Oof, that was really good. Well, I'm proud of you, man. You know,
Thank you.
it makes me feel, as weird as this is to say, it made me feel good to hear you say that, and it was like I could hear you smile while you were saying it.
I was
And
smiling.
that comes with some sort of energy, I guess I would say. And I hope people feel that wherever they're at. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah, if I was to tie this whole thing with a bow, I'd say that's why my like one of my personal models is help that you save the world one person at a time. I'd like to help one person at a time find what happiness means to them because once you figure that out, it becomes so much easier to go for it.
Hmm. I agree, but to an extent. I mean, it depends on what it is that brings you happiness, you know,
That's
and
true.
what brings the person happiness could be distorted by something throughout their life where it ends up being something that just morally we would collectively agree is wrong.
And that that's absolutely true. I think that's lightly touched on one of the other things we discussed, where I was like, everyone says be yourself, but if you yourself are an asshole, well, maybe you want to change that a bit.
Yeah, but I mean, how would you know that you're an asshole if you don't
That
think that anything is wrong with you?
that's the hard part. Like, I wish I had an easy answer for you. I used to I wouldn't say I was an asshole outright, but I used to have like a lot of anger issues, and I eventually realized that people who I cared about, friends that were real friends, which I was very fortunate to have, wanted to spend less and less time with me because I wasn't a good person to be around. And I was fortunate to care enough about what real, honest, good people thought about me that I wanted to change myself to be better for them. And I was fortunate enough to have those people around me. Not everyone has that fortune. It's difficult. I wish there was like some fortune cookie wisdom I could throw out to be like, oh, here's a saying, and as soon as you memorize it, things will get easier. It's not. I think you got to learn what being a good person looks like, and then you got to learn to love that.
I think that would be solved really easily if we just taught moral and ethics in school to everyone.
Absolutely.
That would that would at least, if anything, the future generations would be a little bit more moralistic in the sense of, if I agree that right and wrong only exists in the land of man or woman or whatever you are, but human beings, Homo sapiens, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Right and wrong exists in the land of Homo sapiens. If we want to move forward as a species of where we are right now, we need to accept that we are basing our decisions on a morally right and wrong compass and no longer on instinct. And if we're going to do that, we need to collectively agree one day, or over the course of years, of what right and wrong is. And it wouldn't be, we would also have to accept that this is not religion. This is the law of human, the law of we are coming together and we are collectively deciding what is okay and what is not okay.
Yeah,
Because in our
absolutely.
government trying to make laws and make amendments and ban things and then unban things, it's chaotic. It goes nowhere. We're going nowhere. We're not going to go anywhere with this. We're just going to keep destroying it until something gets reformed. And I've been trying to think of how to reform it. And I honestly think the only way the whole world would ever achieve peace is if we all just accepted that there's gonna be a giant fucking rule book for all of us. And this is what is okay and this is what is not okay. And if you make a new situation, you gotta add it to the rule book. And you can add your name, your family name, your gamer tag, whatever. You can write dickhead, you could write, like Jack Mehoff or something, bend over, because humans are also idiotic when it comes to posting things, whether it be on the internet or in a book or on a desk. When you write things, we just write funny things. Well, haha, it's a giggle. But thousands of years from now, they're gonna look back. They're gonna be going through the textbook of humans, like it's this ancient decree that we all established, and now we're like spread out through the stars and stuff, and we all follow these galactic rules for all humans, and and they're gonna see who posted these, and it's gonna have a human's name next to it and their birth date and how old they were when they posted it, and it's just gonna be like written by Ben Dover. Some human in the future is just gonna laugh,
I
be
think
like, dang.
I think you hit the nail on the head though. Like, it probably one of the ways it starts is with teaching morals and ethics in schools. Like for me personally, I find that whenever people talk about moral gray areas, very rarely do I actually see one. I very commonly feel like a lot of moral dilemmas in modern society are just very easy solutions for me. Like if I could just point and click and fix it, I'd be like, here's how you do it. But there are plenty of people across the world that legitimately don't know that like rape is a bad thing. And I feel like that's something that should be taught. As soon as everyone agrees that rape is a bad thing, maybe people will rape people a lot less.
Yeah, I mean, but also like, see, that's kind of a hard thing too, because there's stuff that I just like I feel like if we put it up to a vote because of how humans are, some things would be labeled good that should be bad. Some things would be labeled bad that should be good.
Yeah.
So, how do you do it? So that would be the situation. And I only thought of all of this because I was reading um, some stuff about Socrates and written by Plato, and or is it the other way around? I don't remember.
Socrates written by Plato because Socrates was very against writing anything down, so I know he didn't
Right,
write it.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, they talk about philosophy and they talk about governments and they talk about people, and like I see a lot of their arguments. I do not agree with some of the shit that Socrates was spewing. But I understand for the time that he existed in that made sense to him. I
Yeah.
could see how he got to that. But as much as it sucks, because I mean, he ended up just pretty much annoying everyone with his questions and was killed,
Yeah.
that that could have been me when I was, if I was existed back then, because I question things all the time. But I honestly think that he was onto something when he was talking about having a government run by, technically it would have to be philosophers. But the problem in all of that, no matter how correct you are, is humans are always suspicious and humans are always devious. If you're not one, you're the other. It's And I mean, I'm not saying that as like scientific fact, but that's just based on my own personal experience.
Yeah.
This is what I believe about humans. And that is the reason why it would never work out, is because you would feel like you can't trust the person in charge. Or we could manipulate someone into thinking that we're a great philosopher and use that against people and move up ahead and then make terrible laws and terrible decisions and ruin everything, like what normally happens in the government, anyways. You know, you could get a good person or you could get a bad person, but you never know until they are there. And that's the part that sucks. How do we stop that from happening?
It's rough. Like it's once again, it's not an easy decision. I think it's probably the way we've been stopping it kinda from happening for millennia now, just ever so slowly, and I mean incrementally slowly, improving the systems, improving the populations, their knowledge, the checks and balances in governments. Like, as much as people, you know, hate their governments almost worldwide, if they're still by and large a whole lot better than they were 2,000 years ago. And I like to hope that 2,000 years from now, a lot of the problems that we have today will be considered like archaic things of the past.
I will tell you that when it comes to thought processes and philosophy and everything 2000 years ago, we're still doing the same things that they were questioning back then. The question has always been there since the beginning for practically everything. And us here in America as a country in 2021 are still arguing about the same things. There's also things that just in recorded history, you could look at different countries and the things that they went through. We're still doing it. The
Well,
whole
yeah.
world's not doing it. The whole world, each country's doing its own kind of different thing on where they are right now. But we do have some of the same problems, which is accepting other humans who don't look like us, other humans who don't speak like us. Just that still territorial type of fighting slash invading, but it's just more complicated now because we're not actually like.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. I like to look at it from an optimistic standpoint, not to detract from the problems that exist. Like, I'm not trying to say, oh, it'll fix itself over time. We definitely, as a community and as individuals, should work towards fixing these problems. But just take your example, like people who are different than us. Racism is obviously still a really big problem in the country today, and it has been since the country's inception. But just from a purely objective standpoint, it's a lot better now than it was 200 years ago. And we still have a long way to go. Anyone that says racism is dead in the US is blind or ignorant. But I'd like to think that as time goes on, as we continue to try to work about this as a community and not let it be forgotten, that racism will still probably exist 200 years from now. But hopefully, just like it is now versus 200 years in the past, it'll be better.
You're gonna tell me that we have to have an argument on whether or not it's okay politically to be mean to a person of color?
No, when did I say that?
Like, why? No, I'm not. I'm saying in order to fix the problem, you would have to make everyone in the country aware that it is a fucking problem to be that way to another human being, regardless of what they look like.
Oh, it sucks that that is the
But
issue. But yeah,
yeah, that's what like that's the way to solve it, is we have to go to Congress and convince them to say that this is bad. Like this, the way that this is set up is this is archaic. A government that was founded and made, I don't even care how many years ago. It's been a while. It's We've gone through so many changes. You cannot tell me that this is still the same system we're using. This is still what we're going to do. With all of the scholars that exist in the world, the people studying in universities, with the people who are professors, the people who are leading in talks and everything, all the money that exists in this country itself, all of the things that we try to pride ourselves on and talk about as our country being so great. I was told my entire life growing up that this was a melting pot. America is the melting pot of the world. It's not.
It's a rotten
It,
melting pot.
it is it is despicable to have been told everything I was told as a child growing up here in America, to become an adult and look at everything that goes on and realize that the problem isn't even just racism. The problem is just straight up mean, angry people who aren't educated enough to understand that what they're doing is wrong.
Oh yeah, I just use racism as as an example to kind of put a spotlight on it. But that what you said, mean, angry people that understand what's wrong, that pervades to pretty much every issue that we have in this country.
Yeah, I mean, it's just and I don't think it's only in this country, but from my own personal experience, this country's the only one that has shopping malls like we do, that has retail stores like we do, and has service like we do, and still has that whole the customer is always right type vibe. We don't pay our workers. I've worked almost all of those jobs. It's the hospitality industry, the tourism industry, working in retail.
Hmm.
Anything that deals with having to interact with another human being has a high risk of dealing with a human being who thinks that they are just way above everything else, no matter what. That their entire world is the only world that exists. And they've got some skewed opinions. They believe far-fetched things. It doesn't make sense to me how it exists, but it does. And the only
Yeah.
thing I can think of is just the fact that each state here in America teaches education differently. How? How can a
I
unified country teach education differently across its entire country and expect all of us to ever be on the same page?
it's because it's not unified. It never was. Probably never will be. At least not in this iteration.
Yeah, and I wish it could all be fixed in a day, you know.
Oh,
But
that'd be such a novel idea.
I
I
don't
think
know how to
that's
do it, and I don't know how to get people on board with the idea of doing it.
that might be why one of the reasons why my like personal motto to go back to it again is you save the world one person at a time. If
Yeah.
I try to think of it in that perspective, like how do I get people as an overarching statement, like the whole country, the whole world on board with fixing things and accepting their problems and moving past them? It's not possible. I'm not going to do it, but I can help one person do it. That's a
Yeah.
lot easier for me to wrap my mind around.
And if I mean, I do think also just the if I were to apply to what I think could actually happen would be if you got enough people to all do the same thing, that thing would be accomplished way quicker.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can't force anyone to be a good person.
No, that goes against the acts of a good person by nature. I think forcing people to do
Yeah.
other things. Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, I mean that ends up making does that make you a good person? If you force some if I mean if your intentions are good, but the only thing you're doing is you're forcing a bad person to be a good person, are you now a not good person? Something to think about. And I think that's where I'm going to wrap this up at. Thank you for your time, Sai.
Once again, Frog, thank you for having me. It was a very fun conversation.
Definitely was. I look forward to just hearing more about you sometime.
Cool, cool,
That
cool. Bring me
was
back
that was really
if you ever feel
interesting.
like it. When you make it big and
Yeah.
you've got hundreds of thousands of viewers, bring me back.
Yeah, then we'll we'll see where the world is at that point.
Hopefully better.
That'll be definitely interesting. Yeah, in some aspect, I hope. So, that's always good. Well, have a wonderful rest of your evening. This is Frog with Froglosophy. Thank you, Sai. I will catch you later.